It's recently been announced that Glucar is the next boss to have a 100% spawn rate on Escape from Tarkov, so how can we take advantage of that and be able to get a ton of XP, some really good loot at the exact same time, and of course get yourself some of those boss kills which you may need to go forward in your account progression. So first things first that you do need to know, Glucar, he has 70 hit points on his head, which does mean that we are going to need to run some ammunition that either has enough penetration to go through the potential helmets that he does have, which can range from tier 5, and essentially you're going to want to run that. Sometimes he runs without a helmet, but we are hoping to go for headshots, and so that is going to be what we're going to want to run. But with 70 hit points, obviously you can go for the second bit, which is the damage. Now 70 damage is the hit point pool of Glucar's head, so you do want to be able to one-tap him. So we are running with the M700. Obviously it's a kitted out version of the M700, but this has 70 damage, allowing us to go straight through him with obviously level 6 penetration, so no issues when it comes to the 7.62 by 51. But you can run pretty much any ammunition that you do want to. You can run things like the HK that we're running, and that is of course using M995 to get the penetration, but of course we'd have to 2-tap him in the head, or you just mag dump his neck area / upper chest, so you know you're gonna end up taking him out very quickly anyway, so there's no real issue with that. And so that is kind of the main thing that you want to take into account. Obviously there's a wider range of ammunitions that you can use, whether you're using, you know, 545 by 39 and just using some high damage rounds. Maybe you're taking in, for example, the Ash 12, which you can use the PS12B to be able to just use him like leg meta. Maybe you want to go for that. Either way, you're just wanting those high penetration rounds with good damage, and you know, once you've got the gist of how Glucar works, you should be able to take him out quite efficiently with just decent penetration ammo. You don't need the top tier level. We definitely do not need M993. And if you haven't already checked out the video where you can go and find some of the best ammunition in the game, farm it up and have a ton, and I mean a ton of ammunition, I'd highly recommend going and checking out that video. It should be linked in the description of this video, so you can see where you can farm the best ammunition in the game very quickly, easily, and get, you know, hundreds of rounds of these top tier ammo. But either way, moving on. Now, Glucar does spawn with guards. These guards can have level 6 armor, which is why you want in that high penetration rounds. Pretty much I would recommend taking minimum level 5 penetration, whether that be, you know, using a 5.56 or you're using 5.45, etc., hence the ammunition. So those level 6 rigs that the guards can have, that is what we want, because we want the level 6 plates that they are going to have within them to farm up the plates from them. Similarly, they can have some like really chunky helmets as well, so just being able to have that high pen ammo is just another reason to do that. The guards can be pretty tanky, but for the most part, you know, you're going to be able to deal with them pretty easily, provided, you know, you don't over peak or keep re-peaking areas and stuff like that against the AI. They definitely feel a lot easier to take out. But obviously, that's only a couple of things that can happen when you're running with, of course, these types of ammunition, but you also have to deal with the fact that they do get a lot of nades, and typically they will nade towards you when they do engage you, which is why we are actually running with a flare. Now, the flare is not a necessity, and certainly you don't have to run night raids, or, you know, you can use it on the daytime raids, but the primary reason for this is just to acquire where Glucar actually is. Now, in the raid that we're going to showcase in a second, we essentially use the flare, but only to target where the boss was. Now, if he goes into a bush, which they can do, you know, they run backwards and they end up in some random bush. Obviously, it's like one of the worst case scenarios for a boss, because they can still see you, and if you have no idea where they are, it can take you a while to just locate where they actually are. But in a more daytime raid, you can easily see that with a normal scope, which is why I take both the FLIR and, of course, a normal scope as well. So we can essentially change these out during the raid. Now, you don't have to have a FLIR. You can use yourself the REAP-IR. You can use any thermal scope that you want to use, or preferably whatever you want. But you don't have to use those. Those are just some of the suggestions. Of course, you can just run a normal scope as well. So essentially, you can just swap those out interchangeably during the raid. So it's just target acquisition, easier to find, and from long ranges, although the FLIR has a limited range at which you can actually see people, it's useful for those like when you're just scouting around. That's all I use it for pretty much. And then, of course, we have the main armament, which we're going to use when we push in, especially against the guards, which is using the HK. It's good for clearing buildings, and using that, obviously, you don't want the sniper for those sorts of engagements. Now, one area that I always target, so we'll jump over into the raid now, because that's pretty much it. You basically run the best gear that you want to run. I mean, the better the gear you have, the more chance you'll take a hit from people. We're running a CQCM face mask, but it's not needed. You can use whatever you want. Same with a headset, same with a rig. We don't use a body armor. We actually use an armored rig just so we can use the Red Rebel extract. It's not necessary. You don't have to do that, but it avoids having to go, you know, elsewhere to essentially go down. And there's some pretty decent keys that you can actually use as well. Those keys, for reference, the only one that I would like highly recommend getting, just to add some value if you find that you take him out and that you don't get a whole lot of stuff, and it's super simple right next to the Red Rebel extract, is the RB KPRL key, which is essentially the guardhouse. It's got a safe in there. Well, it's got 2 safes in there and some weapon boxes, as well as a little tiny like cabinet on the floor, which can have a Bitcoin in it. So always worth checking in there. So RB KPRL, pretty much the only key you need. But of course, you can also use the RBBK marked room as well, as that's in the buildings down as you kind of maybe go down to try and clear him out. Now, main strategy for taking out Glucar is, of course, finding out where he is. There are a variety of spawns for Glucar himself, and you have one by the train station, so kind of in the main area. There's also the underground area where he can be. So that's like in the underground bunker over by the like train station area, so he can be over there. If he aggroes PMCs that are in your game, so other PMCs that are in your game, he can move around and stuff, so just be wary that he doesn't catch you off guards. Now, if Glucar does spawn down in the underground, it's a very annoying fight to have to try and deal with, and most of the time I won't bother actually trying to fight him if I don't find him in the other 2 spots. One of the spots is essentially going over to kind of where the tank garages are, and essentially you'll find him in that area. It's probably one of the easier ones to actually take him out from, and actually you can head up to the radar tower and get vision down onto the garage. The garage is on the left, and you'll see him kind of in the, I think it's White Knight building. So yeah, it's not too bad to actually take him out. It's the repair building. And so yeah, once you kind of move on down there, you'll be able to move through the garages. If you can't see him outside, which you can go outside, and you can get easy take out of him. And then the other area is, of course, the main like barracks areas, which is all down by the helicopter. He can spawn in the center, so right by the helicopter. This is like the best spawn for Glucar, to be honest, because you can get pretty decent vantage points from the radar tower, so you can go up there. You don't have to, but you can do that. And then, of course, you can also go in the hilly area up to the top right of the map, and you can actually get shots into the courtyard area. This is how we took him out in the raid that I'm showcasing today. But also, you can get view range inside of the buildings as well as you're moving through. One main drawback of using something like a thermal is that you can't see through the windows until you've actually smashed the windows. So using a semi-auto is also useful with a FLIR instead of a sniper. So it's up to you whether you want to do that. But that, I thought I'd mention that. Obviously, those 2 buildings, best thing to do, to be honest, and probably the most efficient way is just to go inside of the buildings, and you'll often hear him in there if he does actually spawn. You don't have to fight him in the building. You can get aggro and then hold a door. This is like one of the ultimate ways of taking out all of the bosses, to be honest, is just getting aggro. They'll start to chase you or come towards you, and then you just hold a door. Make sure that you aren't kind of pushing up the staircase in one of the buildings and finding that he's actually in the other side of the building. It can happen, and as you're going up the staircase, there are sections in those buildings that you'll find, like the Bishop building, Black Bishop and Black Pawn, is that as you go up, you can get hit from the other side through the windows and stuff like that, so just be aware of that. But for most part, it is literally just farming up Glucar using that high tier ammunition, and then when you find him, he can have a ton of different actual loot on him. He can have a wide array of actual weapons. He can run the Ash 12, which is what he had when we took him out. With PS12B, that is the ammunition that you actually want, the more valuable one. Otherwise, he can have PS12. And then he can run an SR3M alongside an M1A. The M1A, kind of the one that you want him to have because it comes with M993, M80 or M61 rounds, which are always nice. And then, of course, he can also have that Zenit, which is usually in the back. But then he can have a wider range of pistols and some kind of grenades and stuff like that. So... Headwear, Glucar can have level 4. He can run the back bastion, or just the standard Diamond Age bastion, even. So with that, obviously, I believe he can have the bastion plate on the bastion helmet. So yeah, that can also be level 6. So once again, be aware of that one. And then, yeah, his goons can have a wide array, and I mean a wide array of different things, mainly running like BT and M8 56A1, alongside, you know, probably like level 4 penetration. They don't tend to have like super high ones, but they can also have the M1A with M62 or M80, which can deal a lot of damage and have decent pens. So that's why I would recommend level 5 body armor, etc. Headwear wise, they can have, you know, level 5 and stuff like that. They can also have the Ultim and the Vulcan. So yeah, that can be why you want in those level 5, level 6 penetration. And then armor wise, they can have the Zabralo and Slicks as well. And that's what we're kind of really wanting to farm for the most part, Glucar, why he is so good. Apart from that, what is the actual loot? What are the items that you can expect from Glucar? Well, you can get basically anything within reason, but the main thing is that power filters tend to drop on Glucar when you're in there. So if you are trying to farm up power filters for your hideout or whatever, it can be really useful to actually farm those. But that is pretty much the main crux of what you can expect from Glucar. But once again, it's just a super easy and simple way of getting XP, especially with that 100%. And it feels like the loot at the moment on reserve seems to be buffed a little bit at the exact same time, which is really nice. So opening up the marked rooms maybe would be good. The first marked room I opened had an absolute butt ton of loot in it, so yeah, maybe you'll get some keycards out there if you've got a 10 out of 10 and you're wanting to trade in for a Dorm's marked room. It might be the play, but maybe the price of those has gone skyrocketing high, so be aware of that as well. But with that being said, hopefully you did enjoy this video. Hopefully it kind of ran through the key basics of Glucar and farming the event, why you want to actually do that. And yeah, go get yourself some Glucar kills, take him out and learn the boss. This is probably one of the best times, and it will rotate to another boss next week, and we'll cover that as well. So thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. Like the video if you did, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.